Tonight on WIN's Monday, Millionaire returns, followed by the epic new war series directed by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, Band of Brothers.
Tonight, freak weather causes another delay for the Spirit. 3 injured in a head-on smash in the Derwent Valley. And Hobart braces itself for snow in the suburbs.
This is 6 o'clock, today's local news.
Good evening, Penny Tame with WIN Local News. TT Line is tonight blaming freak weather for Spirit of Tasmania 1's 6-hour docking delay in Devonport. Risky conditions forced the vessel to abort its entry into the Mersey River this morning. The ship eventually docked at 1 this afternoon.
The captain aborted his first attempt at docking this morning. Westerly winds gusting over 40 knots, making the exercise too risky. The ship returned to sea to wait out the weather, and there it stayed, slowly circling for the next 6 hours.
We just need to understand, I think, that there are times when the ships are going to come under heavy weather, and there will be, instances in the future, no doubt, where they'll have problems berthing due to strong winds, and we all just need to be aware of that.
TT Line said the difficulties were no reflection on the capabilities of either of the two ships, adding the former Spirit was forced to take the same action several years ago. They said today's problems with Spirit 1 had no relation to last week's faulty bow thruster, and that the ship handled well last night's strong winds and 4-metre swells, causing minimal discomfort to its 512 passengers. The ship's eventual berthing this afternoon aided by a tugboat. On board, the delay's a little short on explanation.
No, none really. No, it's just the weather was too rough.
We just didn't know what was going on. They told us the first time that the weather was too rough to go in, but after that they just sort of said, well, we're just doing another turn now.
Some of them will feel a bit seedy. Yeah, some of them, and a lot of them didn't feel it at all.
The ship is expected to depart on time tonight. Stephen Pink, 6 o'clock, local news.
Meanwhile, in a good news announcement for the Spirits, passengers on board the Twins can now use mobile telephones and payphones while crossing Bass Strait. Telstra says the CDMA network is the first on-board application of its type in the world.
Great for passengers, also for the ship as well, because they'll be able to use that for on-board communication, for email, for sending faxes.
The coverage will also assist the main service desks and operational areas, including the bridge and engine control room. Telstra Countrywide says it's their most significant contribution to the Tasmanian tourism industry. 3 people are in a serious condition in hospital after a head-on collision near New Norfolk. The accident happened in wet conditions early this morning.
This is the scene which confronted emergency services at about 7:15 this morning. 2 men were travelling in this blue Commodore towards Plenty, and a woman in a Magna was travelling in the opposite direction towards Hobart.
But it appears as though one vehicle has travelled onto the incorrect side of the road and come into collision with the other vehicle.
Police say the 2 Hobart men, aged in their 20s, sustained serious injuries. One was thrown through the windscreen. A middle-aged Ellendale woman was cut free from the crumpled Magna, also seriously injured. Accident investigators aren't yet sure of the cause.
Obviously, at the time the accident was wet, the road conditions were poor, and we don't know how far that's contributed to the accident.
This horrific accident happened on the same narrow stretch of road which claimed a life earlier this year.
But that was in reasonably good weather conditions, but the road is windy and narrow.
Investigations are continuing. Penny Salter, 6 o'clock local news.
Fuel spills on Tasmanian roads and the accidents they've caused will be scrutinised by the RACT in a new public survey. It's a bid to understand the prevalence of this random road hazard.
It happened more than 10 years ago, but Binalong Bay resident Clem Paget still lives with the scars of this road accident. He lost an eye, damaged vertebrae and got neck and brain damage. His car drove onto an unexpected fuel spill on the Bass Highway at Wynyard.
80 metres of it would have been a leaky valve from a large transporter of that fuel.
The RACT is now keeping a watching brief on accidents caused from either fuel loads or vehicle engines.
The spills that are always very much a danger are the spills that are not known.
Truck drivers are also in a precarious position.
The road transport industry is as much a victim as a perpetrator.
Two pieces of state legislation exist to govern the loading and carriage of fuel. 25 state road inspectors enforce these laws. They fear it's the non-commercial, backyard or domestic operators who create the problem.
The transport industry has a very good record, and our experience is that the motoring public can be confident that there are very good systems in place and that fuel spillages are very rare. I guess the issue is only in those very rare occurrences of a utility or a flat tray where something falls off.
And leaky engines are being targeted in roadworthiness checks.
One of the key things we look for there is any sign of oil leakages.
Particularly diesel, I don't know whether people are aware of how dangerous diesel is on the road, but that could be an appropriate measure by having a sign at service stations.
To garner more information about motorists' experiences, the RACT has launched an internet survey.
We currently have membership of some 25% of the population, so we would get a good indication of whether it's an issue or not.
The voluntary survey starts tomorrow and can be accessed at www.ract.com.au.
Yes, I'm just tired of it. How many people are going to die?
Margaret Decker, 6 o'clock local news.
A former statewide league premiership footballer has been jailed for 15 months for computer fraud. 33-year-old Scott Andrew Kirkwood took $150,000 while working for National Australia Bank.
Scott Kirkwood, now of Sydney, was a Hobart player and former New Norfolk captain. This morning he admitted to 14 charges involving electronic funds transfers. The court heard the money went mostly to his own accounts to pay gambling debts while he was a lending officer in National Australia Bank's Hobart Business Banking Centre over 6 months in 1998. Defence lawyer Jim Wilkinson told the court his client had been living beyond his means and borrowed $150,000 with the intention of repaying it. In sentencing, Justice Peter Evans accepted the crimes stemmed from post-traumatic stress following the sudden death of Kirkwood's mother and that he'd previously been of good character. He jailed Kirkwood for 2 years but suspended 9 months. With all repayments accounted for, it's estimated the National Australia Bank lost in excess of $100,000. The bank's application for compensation has been adjourned to a later date. Gina Richmond, 6 o'clock local news.
Southern Tasmania's slightly unseasonal spring is set to continue in the short term at least. But forget just strong winds, more snow is on its way and down to unusually low levels.
While a blanket of snow on Mount Wellington in September is nothing new, colder air crossing the state early tomorrow will bring school holiday snow close to sea level.
We do think that there will be some snow reaching down to perhaps as low as 150 metres tomorrow morning, so that's quite low. Hasn't been as low as that, I think, for some years.
And while it won't get to 1986 levels, the Weather Bureau says 2 to 3 centimetres of snow is likely to settle in suburbs like Mount Nelson and Ferntree, and may cause problems on the southern outlets and even around the Domain. Police are warning drivers to expect tricky conditions and say the Lyell, Huon and Midlands highways could be among roads closed tomorrow.
I would expect that there will be slippery roads plenty tomorrow morning, so it could be a bit, it will certainly be worth taking care tomorrow morning as the snow arrives.
Information on road closures can be obtained by calling 62 302 565. Penny Salter, 6 o'clock local news.
The RSPCA wants an immediate halt to live sheep exports from Tasmania to Saudi Arabia. The association says a plan to ship 50,000 long-tailed lambs from Devonport should be stopped, at least until the findings of a federal inquiry are known.
The annual pilgrimage to Mecca, called the Hajj, is the highest achievement in any Muslim's life. 2 million converge, with peace the dominant theme. For the feasting that follows, thousands of sheep and lambs are ritually slaughtered. 50,000 long-tailed lambs will be shipped from Devonport. But the RSPCA points to the deaths of more than 14,000 sheep on 4 ships in July, victims of intense heat.
What we have to look at is the difference between the way we treat domestic animals as opposed to industry or farm animals. And we definitely wouldn't find it acceptable to let 40,000 dogs go on a boat that we couldn't guarantee their welfare.
The agents organising the shipment say the animals will not endure severe heat.
Sheep from here will not be exposed to that sort of a trip because we just do not ship out of Tasmania during the time of the year when they're going into the Saudi summer.
While the federal inquiry into the animals' deaths has begun, the RSPCA is incensed by the fact that sheep exports will continue.
This is a typical example where we need to be on board and ready to actually take some sort of responsibility for their welfare once they leave our waters.
And obviously very disturbing that that number of sheep perished, but what we have to be responsible for here is making sure that the sheep leave in good condition.
Trade unions have their own reasons for opposing the shipments. They want to see the sheep slaughtered here. Hugh McLean, 6 o'clock local news.
Tasmanian government officials are locked in a national battle to control an outbreak of foot and mouth disease. While Exercise Minotaur is just a simulation, it's designed to prepare us for the real thing.
The Tasmanian government task force taking part in Exercise Minotaur was today bunkered down in the state's disease control headquarters in Hobart. They're mapping livestock movements, setting barrier controls and communicating with government agencies here and interstate. While Tasmania will be spared a direct hit, others haven't been so lucky.
At this stage in the scenario, we have been advised that there is suspicion of foot and mouth disease in Queensland.
The exercise is purely an office-based simulation, but a response to the all-too-real outbreak of foot and mouth Britain suffered last year. Australian agencies hope to learn from the UK experience.
Our criteria for success really is to see how our plans work, to be happy that we've identified any major deficiencies in those plans so we can correct them.
Exercise Minotaur's all about keeping Australia's shores watertight against foot and mouth, but especially Tasmania's. The last scare the state had was in 1979. Authorities believe that's no reason to be complacent.
Really, if we had a significant foot and mouth disease outbreak in Tasmania, it could cost about $1 billion and up to 20,000 jobs.
Exercise Minotaur wraps up on Friday. Brent Blackburn, 6 o'clock local news.
Still to come on WIN Local News, the plastic shopping bag tax and the end of a Glenorchy institution.
Our crumbling homes.
This is just a nightmare.
New and old, it's a national disgrace.
This house is 2 years old.
1 in 5 rated dangerous.
That should never have been passed.
A wake-up call for every homeowner.
There's $20,000 worth of repair work required.
Plus turning spenders into savers.
It is easy, if you know how.
The simple plan putting families in front.
It's freedom. It's peace of mind.
And Mike Munro live from New York as the world remembers. Nissan presents A Current Affair.
Paul Simpson didn't expect this. Okay. But what happened next was totally unexpected.
Don't worry, we'll sort it out.
Only Amy gives you your own personal client manager who'll look after your claim and all your repairs from start to finish.
Lucky you're with Amy.
Feel Good Weight Loss Australia is now in Hobart. Call today and check out their fantastic half-price foundation offer. So don't miss your chance to reach your goals with Feel Good. But hurry, offer ends September 30. Call today.
It's a gateway getaway. There are fantastic holiday destinations and they're all right here in Tassie.
The multi-award-winning Prince Albert Inn is situated in the heart of Launceston. Renovated and refurbished to the highest standards, reflecting the style and grace of the 1850s. Wickedly extravagant spa suites with large corner double spa bath. Or maybe one of the 3 truly opulent executive suites, all with spa baths.
Plan your gateway getaway today.
The Titanic. Recreate the magic of the world's most celebrated liner by constructing this amazing wooden model week by week. Build the Titanic Part 1 with step-by-step instructions, 2 magazines and model sections on sale now, only $5.95.
Paul Simpson didn't expect this, but what was totally unexpected, Amy recognises good drivers. So if you've been on rating 1 for the last 3 years, you keep it for life.
Coming up at 6:30 in WIN News, the United States releases satellite photos of an Iraqi nuclear research plant. A family visits Ground Zero to mourn the death of Australian Andrew Knox. And Pete Sampras beats Andre Agassi to win the US Open. Join me at 6:30. Now back to local news.
A unique Tasmanian tiger rug was sold at auction on the weekend for a cool $270,000. It was bought by a local consortium, the big bonus that it will remain in the state. Brendan Blomley of the Federal Hotels Group was at the auction. Brendan, obviously Federals were keen to buy it and were successful. What can you tell us about the auction?
Oh, the auction was very nerve-wracking at the time, Penny. We're very pleased with the outcome and very pleased that the rug remains here in Tasmania.
Was the competition fierce?
The competition was very fierce.
Were your closest competitors mainly local or from interstate or overseas?
We understand there was some local interest, Penny, but there were one or two telephone bidders as well, so obviously we don't know the origin of those individuals.
Is $270,000 considered a bargain for the rug?
It's hard to put a price on something as unique as this, Penny, but we're pleased that to have been able to purchase the rug at that price.
What are the plans for it now?
We plan to share this icon with both museums, Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery in Hobart and the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery in Launceston. During the peak tourism seasons, we will also display the rug at the Strawn Village on Tasmania's west coast. We will develop an interpretive display there that will be both informative and entertaining.
Well, it's recently been kept in tight security. What measures will be taken to keep it safe now?
Oh, it'll be state-of-the-art security, Penny. We're not going to make that sort of investment and not take all necessary precautions.
Brendan Blomley, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Penny.
The Glenorchy Sunday Market has closed. Stallholders selling their wares in the Northgate car park for the last time yesterday.
It was a big day at yesterday's Glenorchy Sunday Market, and it was the last. After 16 years building up an institution in the Northgate car park, market founder Phil Owen has finally called it a day. Shoppers out in force to say goodbye.
Car parking in the Glenorchy area was very much at a premium yesterday, and as I say, very gratifying to know that I'd created something that had that much response.
While the rising cost of public liability insurance was a factor in closing the market, after all these years, Phil Owen really just wants to spend Sunday doing something else. Sunday trading was also likely to make the shopping centre car park unworkable as a venue when the current deal runs out in 2004, the licensing agreement with Northgate not allowing another operator to take over. Phil Owen's only choice to walk away.
It's one of those things. I don't wish to have anything to do with any market of a Sunday from here on in. I've done my little bit.
While the market at its current location is closed, it may not be the end for stallholders. Glenorchy Council will tonight start considering a plan to shift the Sunday market to the Derwent Entertainment Centre. Mark Robinson, 6 o'clock local news.
The dispute between Porter Hill landowners, the Planning Commission and Hobart City Council is officially heading to the courts. Hearing dates have been set in the Supreme Court for early December. It follows the Commission's rezoning of sections of land as community bushland. It's a move the owners say was instigated by Council and has made their multi-million-dollar properties worthless. The Council says the case is a matter between the owners and the Commission. Tasmanian producers have fared well at the National Fine Food Awards held in Hobart over the weekend. Tasmanian entrants won 4 of the 5 gold medals on offer yesterday, bringing the total gold medal tally to 10 for the whole weekend. Launceston Business, Black Forest Small Goods picking up 1 each of gold, silver and bronze.
It's a lot of hard work, yes, because it's a very competitive industry. But it's a lot of fun to get satisfaction and recognition like the National Food Show and other awards.
Other Tasmanian winners include King Island Dairy, Ashgrove Cheese and Ashbolt Olive Oil. Now to your say, and tonight it's federal plans for an environmental tax on plastic shopping bags.
It might make the world a bit better, instead of having rubbish laying around everywhere and start recycling stuff.
Maybe return to the shopping, that's for the recycling.
Take them back to stores and recycle them would be a good thing. We won't use so much plastic.
It's really difficult to decompose, polythene bags. So if it is taken there and then recycle it, then it could be better.
It's a good idea if the government put like that, because it will cause the economic at least to raise up instead of dumping the pollutant papers in the bush and becoming useless.
Well, just get rid of them anyway. Don't need them again, do you?
What would you use instead of a plastic shopping bag?
Plastic shopping bag, just carry it.
Oh, it's okay. If they want new reused bags, helps the environment a bit more.
Well, I think the government get enough money out of people. I think, why should they get more out of us?
Time for sport now, and Cygnet still celebrating.
An historic SFL premiership, Penny. Also tonight, national squash titles in Hobart.
"7:30 tonight, it's time for Baby. Now there's only one thing left to do.
I want you to give it to Rachel.
Don't miss part 1 of the season final and all new friends tonight on WIN.
Right now, your Tasmanian Toyota dealers are having a massive used car clearance. If you're looking for the best value in used cars with over 500 vehicles to choose from, rush into your nearest Tasmanian Toyota dealer. After record new car sales, we must clear stock, all makes, all models, four-wheel drives, commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles, big and small. Plus, check out the great purchase and finance packages available right now. The massive used car clearance on now at your Tasmanian Toyota dealer.
What's all the fuss about these more expensive brands? Pert can give hair that's just as beautiful. The big difference is you pay a lot less. Pert, great hair, no fuss.
It's a gateway getaway. The Tasmanian Travel Centre Launceston has fantastic holiday ideas.
Right here in North and East Tassie. Phone 1800 651 827 now for details on the holiday for you. It's so easy.
Take a gateway getaway to the beach, wineries, mountains. The choice is yours.
Make a booking and you'll receive a TasFuel voucher, plus be entered in the draw for one of 3 great prizes.
Phone or drop into the Tasmanian Travel Centre Launceston. Plan your gateway getaway today.
The pipes and drums of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, live in concert. The most eagerly awaited Scottish event of the year. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The pipes and drums of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. Book now.
As worms destroy cattle productivity, you need to control them with the best product available. Ivamec Epronex kills worms faster, so the difference it makes it worth the difference. Ivamec Epronex.
September 11, from those who witnessed it, in memoriam, a special event commercial-free, Tuesday on WIN.
Good evening. The Melbourne Knights Soccer Club appears almost certain to bring one of its home games to Tasmania next season. That's despite Soccer Tasmania's decision last week to provide no financial support for the venture due to the unsettled climate of soccer in Australia. Knights Director of Finance and Marketing, John Ovkaric, today confirmed the board would meet tomorrow night with the likelihood a proposal to finance one game would be approved. At this stage, Hobart is seen as the preferred location. The Australian Masters Squash Championships have hit off in Hobart today for the first time. The field of competitors include 2 Australian world champions.
It's the first time Hobart has ever hosted the Australian Masters. After a year and a half of preparing for the tournament, organisers are hopeful the event will be a success.
The committee have been working since Christmas last year, which is, what are we, we're 20 months out from that now, and we're very happy with the way that things have actually happened. Everything's running to schedule, how we've been doing things.
Over 400 Masters competitors from across Australia are taking to the court, vying for top national rankings. Among them, 3 international players, including players from South Africa, Papua New Guinea and France, as well as Tasmania's very best. Competitors' age groups start at 35, with some 80-year-old players still providing tough contests.
The old fellas, it's great to see them running around the court still. They don't do a great amount of running, but their skill level is quite considerable, yes.
The individuals tournament continues this week with finals on Friday. The team's event underway next week. Jane Bestwick, 6 o'clock, local news.
To the State Short Course Swimming Championships, and records continue to tumble on the last day of competition. And some promising swimmers are starting to be noticed in the pool. Swimming Tasmania's Len Yates says the state's best swimmers are yet to make their full impact in Australian swimming, particularly Nicole Hunter, who at 18 is still hitting her peak. Penny Sproul also a standout.
She's just at the very bottom of the pyramid, really. I mean, she's one of the 4 or 5 best Australian individual medley swimmers, and she's only 14 and she's got a long, long way to go.
The championships finished later tonight. The Cygnet Football Club is still celebrating its win over Lauderdale in the SFL Regional League Grand Final on Saturday. It's the side's first flag since 1994. A few employers would have been scratching their heads today. At least 22 employees took voluntary RDOs. But then it's not every day you win a grand final.
There was a lot of work put in back before Christmas, and a great group of players that worked pretty hard during the season. It was nice to finish it off with a premiership.
Cygnet did the damage in the second term, holding the Cats goalless and adding 3 itself. Veteran Gordon Shaw winning the Tony Martin medal as the best man on the ground in a 6-goal win.
The medal probably could have went to 4 or 5 players. I was probably lucky.
In the Premier League prelim yesterday, Clarence jumped Glenorchy in the opening term, booting 6 straight to 1 behind. Superior height and crumbing power proved the difference. Cooney at his electric best with 4 goals for the game. Tim Pear's a focal point, contributing 3 in a 77-point drubbing.
Well, we knew that if we were hard at the ball and we stuck to our game plan, and you know, the result would take care of itself, and it did.
Clarence now take on North Hobart in the grand final. The Old Scholars semi-finals were one-sided affairs. OHA ended St Virgil's season in shocking conditions at Newtown. 5 points down at half-time, OHA booted 11 goals to 4 after the break to pull off a convincing 45-point win. At Queenborough, Hutchins held Uni goalless in the first half, taking an unassailable 47-point lead into the long break. The final margin, 53 points. Uni and OHA will play in the preliminary final this weekend. The winner will take on Hutchins in the grand final. And I'm sure you're hoping Uni bounce back, Penny.
Should be a good game. The weather's next.
"9:30 tonight, as the Allied push begins, one soldier's personal crisis will touch your heart.
I didn't want to let anyone down. I was scared.
The epic new series, Band of Brothers, tonight on WIN.
I trust my horse. He's the backbone of your job, so you've got to look after him.
I trust my job and I trust my knife.
When you really trust somebody and somebody will say who's he and you say his family.
Tell you what you can't trust, they'll but shout the next round.
It's knowing this old girl will get me back home every time.
Helping you drive the country for over 40 years. Toyota, no worries.
Spring savings on now. Save a massive 25% off the entire range of curtain shears. And famous brand USA assorted printed and plain curtain fabrics only $4.99 a metre. Don't miss out. Rush into Spotlight now.
Too much of a good thing is simply marvellous. Indulge yourself at Adelaide Exchange Jewellers. Adelaide Exchange Jewellers. Cat and Fiddle Arcade, Hobart.
Your local Tas everyday supermarket has more great specials waiting for you this week. Here are just a few. 1.25 litre Tarak soft drinks, 79 cents. Defiance cakes and pudding mixes, 89 cents. Gold baked pies, pasties and sausage rolls, 59 cents. And 600ml Rosella tomato sauce, $1.69. It's your Tas everyday, serving the community.
As worms destroy cattle productivity, you need to control them with the best product available. Ivermec Epronex kills worms faster, so the difference it makes it worth the difference. Ivermec Epronex.
Too much of a good thing is simply marvellous. Indulge yourself at Adelaide Exchange Jewellers. Adelaide Exchange Jewellers. Cat and Fiddle Arcade, Hobart.
This local weather report brought to you by Toyota. No worries.
The maximum today was 14 degrees at Scamander, 11 degrees for Hobart, Bruny Island and Port Arthur 10, Strathgordon 6 and Strawn 11. Launceston and Devonport 11 degrees. To boating and strong to gale force winds, lighter inshore in the north and northeast, but reaching up to 45 knots about the south and southeast. There's a gale warning for all coastal waters and a small craft wind alert for inland lakes. Showers for Strawn tomorrow with 10 degrees, possible showers about Burnie 13, Launceston fine 13 and possible possible showers for Swansea with 12. Showers and mountain snow about Hobart with 11, 13 and showers again on Wednesday. There's a sheep graziers, road weather and bushwalkers alert. And that's it for tonight. Good night.
This has been a WIN News presentation from Australia's largest regional television network.
Tonight, alleged gunman Matt Page in custody after a week on the run. America's proof of Iraq's sinister nuclear plans. And the Australian family in New York to mourn their son.
WIN News with John Remus.
Good evening. Matt Page, the man suspected of abducting 2 German tourists in the Northern Territory, is likely to appear in court tomorrow but has yet to be charged. The 31-year-old was captured at a police roadblock following a week-long search through Arnhem Land.
No one was more relieved to hear alleged Outback gunman Matt Page was finally in police custody than his family. As he was being flown to Darwin this afternoon, Rod Page was thanking the police for catching his son uninjured.
The search for Matt appears to have been conducted with sensitivity and appropriate recognition of his condition.
He refused to elaborate on what that condition might be, but he's apparently well enough to appreciate the seriousness of the situation.
But Matt suggested, yeah, he was a bit scary about the situation he was in now.
The 31-year-old was captured at a roadblock in Arnhem Land. It's alleged he showed a gun to 3 people who'd given him a lift before leaping from the back of the car. Page was taken to a watch house at Jabiru, 250 kilometres southeast of Darwin, where police began questioning him about the abduction of 2 German tourists in the Litchfield National Park 8 days ago. The mother and daughter were robbed and left tied to a tree near Tolma Falls. His father says he told his son he'll continue to support him.
Just was glad that we were here for him. It was just a togetherness we could feel over the phone.
Page is also accused of stealing a 4-wheel drive from a woman in Maryborough just over 6 weeks ago. Layla McKinnon, National 9 News.
And Northern Territory Police will have to wait until next week to find out if they can use DNA from a suspect in the Peter Falconio case and compare it with blood on a T-shirt worn by Joanne Lees. Lawyers for Bradley Murdoch, who was arrested on unrelated rape and abduction charges 2 weeks ago, today delayed the tests until an appeal can be heard in the South Australian Supreme Court. America is turning up the pressure on the United Nations to support its campaign for a military strike against Iraq. The White House has commenced a major diplomatic offensive ahead of President Bush's address to the UN.
Satellite photos of Iraqi nuclear facilities are just part of the evidence which America claims to have against Saddam Hussein.
But we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud.
One by one today, the Bush team made their case. Vice President Cheney saying America had intercepted equipment to process weapons-grade uranium on its way to Iraq. Even the cautious Secretary of State is now convinced of Saddam's growing arsenal.
It is a real and present danger.
But with Saddam in defiance of United Nations resolutions on disarmament, Mr. Powell says UN inspectors should try to fix the problem first. Prime Minister Howard today backed the Bush strategy.
Iraq's failure to comply is also a failure of the United Nations to ensure compliance.
Here in New York today, anti-war protesters staged a march, and elsewhere there was another call for peace. A former weapons inspector has appeared in Iraq saying Saddam is not seeking to acquire any weapons of mass destruction.
All we have is speculation.
President Bush is already hinting that if the rest of the world doesn't help out on taking on Saddam, America will go it alone. He is, of course, hoping for the United Nations to take the lead. But he says doing nothing is not an option. In New York, Robert Penfold, National 9 News.
As the Iraq danger escalates, American authorities are increasingly concerned about the risk of terrorist attacks in this anniversary week. US security forces are vigilant overseas and at home. Possible targets including New York, where an Australian family has arrived to mourn their lost son.
For this family, it has been the longest and hardest of journeys. The Knox family of Adelaide lost 29-year-old Andrew when the towers came down. Today, his parents, Marion and Tom, twin brother Stuart, family and friends, marked the place where the young financier died. At this makeshift memorial near an Australian flag, they tied a T-shirt to the fence. It read, "I love New York." On it, Andrew's mum and dad wrote, "We will love you forever," and "To a big man with a big heart." This stretch of fence, this T-shirt, is the closest they have to a grave for son and brother. And at this church not too far from the World Trade Center site, there'll be a special service on the 11th for the Australian victims and their families and friends who've come to New York. Just before dawn that day, 5 bagpipe and drum processions will march through Manhattan from different corners, converging on Ground Zero where the name of every victim will be read. By order of the city, there will be no speeches. Instead, clerics of every faith will offer words of reflection. Silence will mark the times when the 2 planes struck. Today, 50 planes flew overhead, one representing each of the American states. In Pennsylvania, at the crash scene of hijacked Flight 93, locals from the nearby small country town of Shanksville have built their own memorial. The impact site itself is still sealed by the FBI.
For me to understand that there's this kind of evil in the world, this kind of hatred, I didn't know that kind of hatred existed.
Michael Usher, National 9 News.
A powerful earthquake has devastated parts of Papua New Guinea. Measuring 7.5, it caused a small tidal wave off the north coast near Wewak. At least 3 people have been killed, but that number is expected to rise. Witnesses say up to 50 homes have collapsed and many water and power lines have been damaged.
It is a very active area. We've had 7 earthquakes of magnitude 7 or greater in the last 50 years.
One in the same region 4 years ago killed 2,000 people. The New South Wales Supreme Court heard horrifying details today of how a 71-year-old woman was left to die after being robbed and sexually assaulted in her South Coast home. 3 men are on trial accused of her murder.
It was a death that did not come quickly. Joy Alchin left in her home, hands taped behind her back, ankles tied with plastic, a pillow slip taped over her head. The murder trial today told she remained bound and gagged in that house until she died 10 days later. Accused of her killing, Ian and Shannon Steinman and Peter Tabor, the de facto of Mrs Alchin's niece. It's claimed the trio robbed the 71-year-old, sexually assaulted her, then left her. She eventually died from smothering and dehydration. During the trial, the jury will hear a 000 phone call. It's alleged was made by one of the accused men on the morning Joy Alchin was left bound and gagged, a call that was dismissed by the operator as a hoax and not followed up on. Shannon Steinman has pleaded guilty to 1 charge of robbing Mrs Alchin with his co-accused. The 2 others, though, maintain they are innocent of all charges. The prosecution said in the 14 months before, Mrs Alchin had lent $40,000 to 2 family members using old grey $100 notes, now out of circulation. That money was repaid. It's claimed the accused went shopping after robbing the elderly woman. The court told they paid for cars using old $100 bills. Nina Stevens, National 9 News.
The inquiry into sex abuse allegations against Catholic Archbishop George Pell will go ahead despite the accuser threatening to withdraw. The man's lawyers have now agreed to represent him without charge.
Lawyer Peter Ward says his client almost had to pull out of the inquiry into molestation allegations against the Sydney Archbishop because he couldn't afford the legal fees and the church won't pay them.
The complainant wanted to press ahead. It would not have been a fair hearing if he was unrepresented. And I think we just couldn't leave him in the lurch.
So the lawyers, including a Melbourne QC, will now work for free before the independent inquiry headed by former Victorian Supreme Court Judge Alex Southwell. While not commenting on today's decision, Dr Pell has consistently denied claims that as a trainee priest he abused the then 12-year-old altar boy at a Phillip Island church camp in 1961. The inquiry hearings are now due to get underway on September 30, but lawyers for the man making the accusations say their work has been made more difficult by the leaking to the media of the man's prior criminal convictions.
It has prevented us from interviewing other people who would be concerned that their priors may be released if they had any.
Dr Pell remains stood down as Archbishop until the inquiry is completed. Brett McLeod, National 9 News.
Thousands of miracle seekers have crowded a Perth church to look at a special religious statue. It's claimed the tiny replica of the Virgin Mary has been crying for almost a month.
As the word spreads, the crowds are growing. Thousands of people have now made their pilgrimages to Rockingham to see the weeping statue of the Virgin Mary, many in search of a miracle, like Jurgen Manthe Gerard, whose prostate cancer has spread to his bones.
I feel warm over bed. It helped.
After several visits, Laura Daniels is convinced she's beating her cancer.
I couldn't use my leg or my hand, and now I'm able to use my leg and my hand.
There's an awful lot of faith around.
Patty Powell, who bought the fiberglass Madonna in Bangkok 8 years ago for $150, has been amazed at the powerful spiritual impact it's having on those who see it.
Some of them, when they come, actually break down in tears when they see Our Lady crying.
The owner claims the statue has been weeping tears of rose-scented oil in short episodes since March, but has wept non-stop over the past 4 weeks.
She's calling the world to come back to God.
Ashley Malone, National 9 News.
Still to come on WIN News, a unique look at those affected by the September 11 attacks and China hit by more wild weather.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's aye.
Aye. Aye. Ah, it's aye.
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 It's aye.
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 Aye. Luck indeed. Thanks, Eddie.
Do you know? Millionaire returns 8:30 tonight to WIN.
Go Harvey Norman and join us in our 20-year celebrations. Great deals on these Fisher & Paykel Innovative Living washing machines. Like this 5.5 kg washer with 4 wash cycles for a low $649. The 7.5 kg family size washer with smart drive system for $999. And for the ultimate Fisher & Paykel's 8 kg intuitive washing machine with continuous fabric sensing for best wash results at a super price of $11.99. And ask about our price promise. Harvey Norman, 20 years and still going strong.
What's hot at your Habitat? This Avanti 8-piece night box set is now just $99. That's hot. Stylish salt and pepper ceramic platters and bowls are now just $19.95. And save $270 on this Baccarat 9-piece cook set, complete with covered roaster and multifunction cooker, all for just $299. That's really hot. Hot values from your Habitat, home of the hottest homeware.
That's my Habitat.
Chances are you have noticed scores of Elders, Brown and Banks sold signs around Hobart's central suburbs. How do we do it? Well, we certainly don't rely on open homes. We work harder to bring the right people to your door. Elders, Brown and Banks are Hobart's longest established real estate company. Our reps have an average of 10 years experience.
Choose an agent with a traditional work ethic. Try Elders, Brown and Banks and experience the difference.
He talks to the crocodiles. Right, I nearly got him. But if you think you've seen his wild side...
Ah! Just kidding.
Wait till you see him on the big screen.
Right!
The Crocodile Hunter collision course.
2 men are being treated for serious burns after their light plane crashed and burst into flames just north of Brisbane. Witnesses say it took off from Redcliffe Airport, lost power immediately and came down in swampland 1 kilometre away.
It's coming down on its side, lost power one side by the sound and looks of it.
The men, both aged in their 40s, each received burns to 50% of their bodies. They're both in a stable condition. 10 days after it fell off in mid-air, the emergency exit of a Piper Navajo aircraft has been found lying in a muddy paddock in an outer suburb of Melbourne. The Civil Aviation Safety Authority will examine the flyaway door at Essendon Airport tomorrow.
Plant operator Darren Hughes could hardly believe his eyes this morning when he and his offsider made a most unusual discovery. Clearing an access road for a new industrial estate near the intersection of Canterbury and Dorset roads, they found the missing piece of a Piper Navajo that flew into Essendon Airport 10 days ago.
You find a few old bottles and things generally, you know, different areas, you know, but yeah, you don't come across an aeroplane door every day.
He immediately contacted air safety officials.
His observations confirming their initial analysis that the light curved door probably fluttered to the ground rather than plummeting dangerously.
Yeah, very light. Yeah, I was surprised myself. You know, you just pick it up with one hand. There was no hole in the ground or anything, no crater.
Darren was initially asked to take the errant exit home with him overnight, but this afternoon it was quietly reclaimed by the embarrassed owners, who'll give it to the Civil Aviation Authority for inspection tomorrow. Meantime, Darren Hughes will be dealing with a different problem. 25 years after he hit the headlines for nabbing a then one-game record in junior football, he reckons this story will have his mates stirring him again.
Well, it'll all start again. I'll cop it, don't worry.
Charles Slade, National 9 News.
China has again been hit by wild weather, this time a typhoon battering the country's southeast coast. Winds of more than 130 kilometres an hour tore through villages and cities, damaging thousands of buildings and bringing down power lines and trees. A day of torrential rain also flooded houses in low-lying areas. At least 23 people died, while hundreds of thousands were evacuated from their homes. Returning to this week's September 11 anniversary, and an ambitious project has been launched to restore hundreds of photos recovered from the World Trade Center ruins in New York. The photos provide a unique look into the lives of those affected by the terrorist attacks.
Since May, they have gathered around tables in a converted studio at NFL Films for what was at first a volunteer job and has now become a mission.
And you don't try and clean those outer edges.
A mission led by Phil Tuckett to restore the photos and their memories for survivors of the attack and families of those who died.
I think every one of them is a miracle. And it became sort of a spiritual thing for us to try and preserve every single photo.
The NYPD recovered the photos, but didn't know how to clean them. They arrived torn, burned, images obscured. Some fused into bricks by the force and heat of the destruction. Volunteers learned these clumps of photos could be separated by soaking them in tubs of ice water, revealing images that had been preserved on the inner layers. On some photos, dirt, grit, even glass was driven into the surface, but even they could be saved with an emulsion cleaning spray. It magically restores the picture long enough for it to be photographed and scanned into a computer. What's been revealed to the 140 volunteers is life before September 11th. A boat and its builder. A baby. A young girl on the day of her first communion. When the work is done, more than 10,000 pictures will have been restored. Memories that, unlike so much else in the World Trade Center, have not been lost forever.
WIN News will have extended bulletins on Wednesday and Thursday nights as the world remembers the events of September 11. And throughout Wednesday evening, we'll take you live to the special commemoration services in New York, Washington and Pennsylvania. To finance now, and a good day all round on the stock market, the All Ords finishing 27.2 firmer. The banks performed strongly, the ANZ up 35 cents, Westpac 31. News Corp gained 30 cents, while insurer QBE dipped 33. Our dollar is stronger against the greenback pound and yen. Colin joins us with sport now, and the Wallabies fare well one of their own, Colin.
They have, John, with coach or former coach Greg Smith buried today. Then Pete Sampras sweeps aside long-time rival Andre Agassi to claim a 5th US Open.
Tuesday, a deadly double puzzle.
A body without a murderer and a murder without a body.
Set by a killer who makes evidence hide.
And he just ran into us. You want to fill in the blanks?
CSI, Tuesday 8:30.
You can't afford to miss Harvey Norman's 20th birthday celebrations. At Harvey Norman, we won't be beaten. Buy furniture, bedding in Manchester, small and large electrical items, computers and communications and much more from a Harvey Norman franchisee. If you find a lower advertised price, you'll be refunded 110% of the difference. That's right, 110% of the difference between any competitor's lower advertised price and your purchase price. Terms and conditions apply. See store for details. Harvey Norman, 20 years and still going strong.
Come to Harvey Norman, your true blue Aussie discounter.
Play Australia's most exciting ball game. This Tuesday night, Oz Lotto jackpots to $10 million. So if you want to be part of the game, get into your nearest Tattersalls outlet. $10 million! Wouldn't that be ace?
The local government elections are on again. But don't worry. You don't have to go to a polling booth to vote. You can vote from home. If you're on the state roll, you'll get your postal ballot pack in the mail next month. Some ratepayers and others may have to enrol especially. Rolls are closing, so check your newspaper, phone your council, or call 1-800-801-701.
For top value and great food, it's all at the China Diner. Soup, entrees, and a fantastic selection of Chinese and Australian dishes, plus our usual range of fresh salads and tempting desserts. Remember, it's all you can eat, just $7.50 for lunch and $8.50 for dinner, with takeaways from $4 including rice. For top value, it's the fully licensed China Diner, Main Road, Moona, next to McDonald's.
September 11, from those who witnessed it. In Memoriam, a special event commercial-free, Tuesday on WIN.
In a year of unexpected defeats which threatened to fade him into tennis history, Pete Sampras has written another glowing chapter in capturing his 5th US Open singles crown. His 4-set victory over Andre Agassi made him the oldest champion since Australia's Ken Rosewall in 1970.
Andre Agassi called his 34th meeting with Pete Sampras a toast to the past. And after Art and James Garfunkel lifted national spirits, Rod Laver joined the pair for the coin toss, the Australian great linking 31 Grand Slam titles among them. At 31, Sampras has been in the twilight of a glittering career, his star fading since his last title at Wimbledon 2 years ago.
Oh, that's a shot.
Few gave him a chance of winning a 5th Open title, yet 16 aces and the familiar flow of volleys soon had him leading by 2 sets. Being careful and cautious wasn't going to be enough for Agassi. The counterpuncher had to take bigger chances.
Oh, he made it. Boy, what an extraordinary shot.
Sampras lost his zip in the 3rd set and Agassi seized the moment. Into the 4th, Sampras found his fortunes improving.
Oh, a little bit lucky.
He ended Agassi's fight back by breaking him with backhand winners.
Oh.
Sampras served it out and the legend continues, his 14th Grand Slam title. Outplayed at the last 2 finals at Flushing Meadows, Sampras couldn't contain himself, wading through the crowd to reach his wife.
I'm back. I mean, I played so well today. Andre brings out the best in me every time I step out with him.
Agassi losing little in defeat.
It is great to hear New York cheer again.
Charles Christian, National 9 News.
Essendon hero Matthew Lloyd was the biggest challenge in the European motorbike racing overnight. Valentino Rossi won a rain-affected Portuguese MotoGP from Carlos Checa and Toru Ukawa, one of 2 meetings that provided plenty of hair-raising spills.
The Estoril track surface was treacherous, and one by one the field was culled. There was virtually no room for error.
As he goes through the chicane.
Running second 3 laps from the finish, Sete Gibano paid the biggest price.
Gibano is down.
Rossi went on for a conservative but comfortable win. At the Superbikes, World Championship leader Troy Bayliss rode a determined race, coming from 5th to finish 2nd behind Colin Edwards. The American is now within striking distance of the Australian with just 1 race to go. For drama, nothing comes close to the 600s. A blown engine and oil, a toxic mix. This rider has to be the luckiest man in the world.
Oh, that's a big off. Is that... Oh, 2 bikes down.
Race officials can also count their blessings as more bikes hit the oil patch.
Bikes going up everywhere. Oh, this is mayhem.
The initial crash, though, remained the most chilling. Only a split hair averting tragedy. Ken Sutcliffe, National 9 News.
A lucky chap there. That's sport, John.
Thanks, Kyle. After the break, the weather with me.
It's always good to get a good start.